Okay. Today's is a classic example of what UPSC asks and the pattern in which, see, UPSC hasn't said exactly how they make questions, the thought process behind it, but since decades there are researchers, analysts or simple coaching institutes, centers and students who've cleared the exam have said how UPSC frames questions or what is behind UPSC's mind. For example, whatever is in the news, okay, whatever is in the current part, UPSC takes that part and it asks the static part of it. So today there are two examples. We'll deal with only one today and the next tomorrow. For example, RTI is the primary one and the second one is Lokpal. Very much in news, you might have seen that the officials of Lokpal have asked for luxury cars, okay, and that has led to a whole debate. It's an intellectual debate, not the common people's knowledge, but it has led to a debate that the power, the whole idea of Lokpal has been to some extent ruined by their demands. Okay? So that will be the second topic. Today's topic is RTI. It is world famous. India has been very much proud of it. And there are three words associated with RTI. You will see that: accountability, good governance and transparency. And all these three words, the basic core, the plinth on which RTI stood, is now into question. Through numerous articles, our only source and our only core source will be what? Newspaper articles, because they are the most authentic source, given the data, given the facts and given the research work behind it. We will see each and every step how the rights of RTI have been disturbed and have been broken down step by step. See, what do you mean by this title? You also need to understand what do you mean by this title. This title simply means there are fundamental rights in India. Everyone is aware of it. Okay? The most basic chapter, and we've taken that from the rights of US. Understood? Now, you are an empowered citizen. How? Because you have the rights. How are you an empowered citizen? Because the constitution has given you some rights. Rights what's against the state. That is how you are empowered. In the same manner, RTI had been given some powers, some rights through which RTI was being exercised by numerous citizens of India or organizations, entities, whatever. But it was powerful because of the rights which were engraved in its act. But step by step, those rights, those powers are being cut down. Okay? That is the whole idea of today's. So therefore, it is an apt title, the rights of RTI. Like the rights of citizen, the RTI also has its rights. And the three words which we'll learn the most or hear of the most is accountability, good governance and transparency. And all the midst, there's another word, keeping the word as a blanket. The government is trying to cut down RTI from its rights, and that word is what? Personal information. Okay? See how it is all going. This is a very simple slide just to give you the power which RTI holds. How do you show your power? How do you show, or how do someone judges oneself? Through its objectives or through its results. How do you that you study a lot? Through your exams, the result of your exam. In the same manner, how is RTI seen as a very powerful tool, as a very powerful entity? Through these are official, I won't say acts, these are official newspaper clippings and official scandals, scams. Most of these scams, the most breakthrough, the watershed moment was seen through the power of RTI. It was through the RTI, or it was because of RTI that these scams were unsurfaced. These scams saw the day of light because of RTI. That is what I am trying to tell you over here. So through this you can understand the power which RTI held, and now that power is being curtailed. For example, Adarsh Housing Society scam in Maharashtra, very infamous. It's not famous, very infamous scandal. Second is what? 2G spectrum. Lakhs of crores full of corruption. Commonwealth game scams, Vapam scams. If you see the whole rest, just take out 10 seconds of your life and read out. All I'm trying to show is the power which RTI held is seen through these, that it uncovered so much. Okay, now because it uncovered so much, it unfurled a few feathers also. It shook some seeds, some power structures, some people in power, some governments in power, and regime in power. So that is why the whole machinery which brought RTI into existence is now the same machinery which is trying to curtail its powers. Okay, we are not talking about any governments per se, any people in power, but the whole structure, the whole power structure is against RTI step by step. Okay, see, you understood this? How? It was a very beautiful act. This is the main slide. Okay, we'll see three parts to it. One part is in 2019. Okay. We saw all those scams and scandals. All that came to light because of RTI, because of filing of RTI. To understand all this, first you need to understand how RTI works. Okay. I haven't made a particular slide for it. It's simple how RTI works. See, there are three lines, right? You might remember. What are those three lines? We the people of India. Okay. For the people, by the people, we the people. What does that mean? That simply means is the power, the whole power, be it with the Prime Minister, but the central power, hota na, the ground power, the origin of power is with whom? The people of India. That is what. So, power is equal to common citizens. Just remember this line. Power is with whom? It's a very nomenclature, what a bookish line. We all know power is not with the people, but for the sake of the constitution, for the sake of the founders of the constitution, the very idea in which power is held with whom? Power is held with the very common citizens. We the people of India. Okay, now, to empower these people, numerous acts, fundamental rights, DPST, whatsoever, everything is done for the people. Okay, so for the people, to the people, by the people. To empower them, a very basic necessity was what? Information. Without information, there is no empowerment. Through various judgments, we've seen that. For example, we often say, data is the new oil. Okay, so data is what? Information. Okay. The next war is for what? A part of what? It will be held on data. All misinformation, disinformation, so much is going on because of what? Because of data. So, there is no true empowerment without data or without information. So, through various judgments, what Honorable Supreme Court said was, or the act which came out was said was that the very common citizens have the right to ask questions, have the right to what? Accountability, transparency and good governance. Good governance is an umbrella term, and under that transparency, accountability and such beautiful words come into place. Okay, so the whole fight is for information. Then came up what? The idea of RTI. What RTI simply means is, you can ask government authorities information regarding anything whichever is in public domain. Now, the very basic definition of government authorities was anything which is funded by the government partially also, be it private institutes, private schools also, but privately or partially funded by, not privately funded by, partially funded by the government, all come under the official name of government, public authority. Understood? Now, if you want to ask them questions, you simple file, you'll go to the, whether it's an online method, very simple, and hardly they charge any fees. It's a 10 rupee nominal fee. That can also be waived if you're from the marginalized sections, not important. You'll file an RTI asking specific information. Now, what happens when you file an RTI? It goes to an information officer, public information officer. Very simple. Now, this person, he's put in authority that he will transfer your file to the specific department, specific authority to whom you've asked the question. Okay? Now, his role is very vital. Now, what does he do? He has to give his reply within 30 days or 30 plus 5 days. Okay? But if this is not done, then things go to what? CIC and SIC. These two are the headmost positions, Central Information Commission and State Information Commission. Okay? Just a brief framework. You file for RTI, the file goes to PIO, okay? Public Information Officer. He has to deliver whatever you've asked for within 30 days plus 35 days for some discrepancies. If this is not done, then the file goes to CIC and SIC, and they have the power to charge penalty on the authority, those who are not delivering information within the prescribed time. Okay, basic information understood. Now, the whole power structure lies over here because these are the guys who can impose penalty on the government officers who are not giving information within time or not giving prescribed information, both ways. There can be two cases, either not satisfied with information or there is no information at all, both cases. Okay, now what is happening step by step. Okay. These three articles will give you a very, not brief, but an extensive idea of what is going on. First is in 2019. If you see the case of 2019, earlier Chief Information Commissioners at the central level, as the name suggests, and we'll just keep the example of Chief Information, you just relate it simply to state. You'll draw a parallel very easy. These were equated to what? CICEC, Chief Election Commissioners. Okay? Chief Information was a new body. Okay? It was equated directly to Chief Election Commissioner, a constitutional body and a constitutional post. Understood? That was the power which they had. But the central government didn't like it. To some reason, they've given their own reasons. which to an intellectual thought is not so much hota na objective or logical nature. Another thing was that CIC had what? It was given the post equivalent to a constitutional post. That means it had security of tenure, which earlier was 5 years. But as you can see through this article, now the tenure has been cut to 3 years. Imagine. It is nowhere a promotion. You can't justify saying that it is a promotion. But earlier the same post had 5 years, but in 2019 it was cut to 3 years. Another thing was, first CIC was equated to Chief Election Commissioner. That means a constitutional post, a constitutional post. I am saying it again. But now it has been given the post of a secretary. Now the service conditions, everything is what? Dependent on the central government. Earlier everything was dependent on equivalent to Chief Election Commissioner. But now, see, secretary is also very powerful post, but it is under the direct government. So its whims and fancies, its tenures, how it works, its working conditions, everything is now dependent on the central government. So is it an independent body now? Can it function independently? That is the question. It could also have functioned independently, but what the central government did was, it cut the tenure to 3 years. See, a direct impact. Now whoever is the Central Information Commissioner, what hota na? In his mind, what would be going on? Or whole machinery, what might it have thought? That the center is trying to cut its powers, which is very general. We can see that. Now, this was one part. This all happened in 2019. Contrary to that, what is happening now? The whole idea you understood? The main part was what? CIC at the central level and SIC at the state level. These two are the guys. Under them are information officers. At the central level there are 10, and so is the case of state. Now, these guys have the power to impose penalty on government officers, government authority, government departments. That is the whole premise of the debate. Now what happened is, in the past 11 years, more than 7 times, in the past, we'll see the article also, in the past 11 years, more than 7 times, this position of Central Information Commissioner, the head, has been vacant. So who will impose the penalties? Another fun fact is, it's not a fun fact, just try to understand, it's a pun intended fact. The fact is that out of these 10 information commissioners, as of today, December 2025, only 2 posts have been occupied. 8 are vacant. Imagine. There's another whole debate, protest going on because of unemployment. We've got positions there, but according to the government, they are not finding suitable posts. They are not finding suitable persons. Imagine the irony. You will be better at it. So this is the whole fight. This is the whole debate, that the people in power, the people who are held responsible for making those accountable, are nowhere in the position. Like, there is no person heading that. That was one part. Now see. Now if you try to understand, there are multiple domains going on. The central government is trying to cut its wings through multiple domains, trying to attack in all fronts. So what is it doing else? First, what you need to understand is basics. Right to information, where does it derive its power? Right to information, what? It has been now considered a fundamental right in Raj Narayan case. So just write it down. Raj Narayan case. Article 19 A. Speech and expression. You might have by hearted data. So under this, RTI has been given what? The power of being a fundamental right. Now, what does that mean? So, fundamental right, it has its own powers, and it's come under the fundamental right. Now, in the present context, it has been also called as a right to deny information. Understood? We saw na, ki if you are asking information and it's not being delivered to you, and when it's not delivered and you're complaining, that person is not the whom you will complain. So it is a sort of right to deny information. This is the basic premise. But the deeper level is, there's one new term in the town. I'm sorry for this nomenclature. New term in the town, that is called personal information. DPDP Act. According to this, a new term has been introduced, that is called personal information. So you need to understand this. What is DPDP? DPDP is Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023. Again, I'll repeat. Digital Personal Data Protection Act, DPDP Act. Under this, there's a clause, section 8(1)J. So little space to write here. Section 18J. Under this simply this word personal information has been added, and it has been given like very vast, encompassing very too much. That is the idea, that there is a vagueness to the word personal information, and it has been given lot of ground to be interpreted. Okay? So that is the idea. So what it says was, no personal information can be disposed or no person can be disclosed, in simple. Okay? According to this article, and it is a very thorough read article, okay? According to this article, it is a right to deny just by saying what? It is personal information. For example, okay? See, the activists in India or the person who are interested in how the government works, how the government machinery is running, they are very active people. Okay, so they exactly know when someone is introduced to a position, the day of his, we see Supreme Court judge joining on this date and he will retire on this specific date. So much detail is going on. So in simple, we'll just take the example of this article, that how personal information, the very word personal information is leading to vagueness. For example, if someone is promoted and you'll ask information that he or she is promoted, why, on what grounds, then the government or that particular department can easily say it is personal information, we cannot say it. It is understandable, it is personal. But imagine if a constitutional post or at a government post, everyone knows the date of joining, everyone knows the rules how people are promoted, but if contrary to those rules someone is promoted, then there is a very basic question that how it is being done. So an RTI can be filed, and then on the same grounds of personal information it can be denied. Understood? If someone is flouting the rules or bypassing the rules, and you know that very fact because we all know the date of joining, how the person is joined, the recruitment process, and after that if someone is getting a promotion quite frequently, quite often, and you ask questions, that can also be denied on the very role of personal information. Another example is quoted of was medical, but that is not important to today's class. Understood? So all this is being done. Section 1(8) of J, Personal Data Protection Bill 2003. Okay. Now this was this article. Now you should see, it's a very ironic, I'm not getting a better word, it's a very ironic word, but in the parliament this has been said. Just read it. Data bill 250 crores, it's not rupees. It is not rupees, it is rupees, but imagine the magnitude. 250 crore fine for flouting citizen information norms. What it says was, we discussed there are public information officers, right, to whom your RTI goes to. If these guys somehow disclose information which is contrary, if they disclose information which is contrary to the views of the government, what the fine will be is 250 crores. This is the maximum fine. Just imagine a fine of 250 crores. Like we've seen industrial dispute cases which have caused damage of more than this, but the fine was actually a fraction of it. N number of cases. But in this case, if a public information officer intentionally, unintentionally just discloses information which the government didn't want to be out in the general open for the general public to know, the fine will be 250 crores. Now imagine what is the position of these guys. What power do they hold? They won't even, if there is a cause of very just cause of, then also they'll think more than 1 million times to disclose information because of this. Understood? How? Through various acts, to monetary measures also, penalty measures also, the government is cutting the wings of RTI. Another important thing is what? See, all this comes under a very, all this is coming under to the contrary of an idea which is known as acid test. You know what acid test means? It's not a bad word to say. Acid test. What acid test mean is, whatever information the House, the Parliament is giving to its members, MPs and MLAs at the centre and MLAs at the state. Again I repeat, whatever information is being passed at the centre through the Parliament to the MPs and through the state legislators to the MLAs. Whatever the information be, that information can be provided to the very citizens. If the information, it is we the people for the people. So if the people, the person elected by the people, if they are getting the information, the same information can be given to the very common citizens. This is the acid test. But just to counter these, all this is coming, that some information might have been the privileged information for the privileged people according to our society have been given to the MPs and MLAs. But if that information is leaked, or does any government does not simply want that information to be out in the public domain, this act can be imposed. Imagine 250 crores. If a guy will be at most dishonest, then also earning such an amount through black money, through bribery is next to impossible given the position that these guys has. It's a very rare statement which I make, but imagine the penalty. Through the penalty, you can understand the intentions of the prevailing government. Through the penalty, you can understand the graveness of the situation, that data is the new oil, information is the new currency, and the people in power don't want the citizens, the very center of the power to have information. Okay, now, another thing is, it's not important, but it is to somewhat contrary. Okay? You have to learn to connect your answers. We learned about Raj Narayan case, in which it was said that right to information comes under right to speech and expression, Article 19, 1, subclause A. Okay. Now, in another judgment, to somewhat empowering this article, right to privacy. Okay? There is very famous judgment. It has been in prelims also and in mains also. Puttaswamy judgment. Okay? Honorable Puttaswamy judgment. It said what? What it claimed was right to privacy. Right to privacy. Okay. Now, this is to some extent versus rights of RTI. See, what RTI is saying is, you can give information. Simple. What privacy is saying is, you have to withhold information in the name of personal information, which comes under the right to privacy. But if you closely read these two judgments, there is a thin line which has been very well demarcated by the Supreme Court, by the honorable judges. But that thin line is now being exploited by the politicians, by the executive, by the legislature. That thin line has been very well demarcated, I am saying again, by these two judgments, Raj Narayan case versus the Puttaswamy judgment of right to privacy. That what is privacy is also important, but right to information is also important. But that very thin line is again being exploited by the people in power. I suppose you've got the very idea. Now we'll see the concluding slides. Okay. This is the present articles. Okay. CIC is headless and toothless. And again, the second is how the RTI regime was captured. Okay. Now, in May most, just remember this, what is the process and appointments. We said discuss how it is, we'll discuss it again. But in normal procedure, like most of the constitutional posts, constitutional bodies, what happens if someone is about to retire, within 6 months before his retirement itself, the day on he retires, the next person who will be appointed is almost clear. Okay? Has almost been, the recruitment process has been over in simple terms. But in the case of Chief Election Commissioner and State Information Commissioner and information officers in both the state and central level, we don't know why there is no credible information, why this thing is not being implemented. Okay? Again, coming back to the article, headless and toothless. Okay? In the next slide, we'll see for the last 7 years, for the last 11 years, 7 times the post has been vacant. So there is no person in position, there is no person in power to impose penalties. That is the whole idea. Okay. Now, again, we took the case of two judgments. Again, in the next slide, we'll see again a contradictory view. See, the contradictory, you'll see it, you'll understand better. Okay. And another thing, important part over this slide is remember this 1.2% of cases. Okay. How the RTI regime was captured. Vacant post, primary thing. Second, penalties is barely 1.2 cases. What I initially said was the power of CIC and SIC was what? To impose penalties. Now, in all these years, what? Only 1.2% of the cases are, in these cases, only penalties imposed. Our judgments, our judicial system regarding to information, right to information is so good or so bad. You have to see which angle it is. There is always pros, cons, counterplays going on. So, only 1.2 cases, 1.2% cases penalty has been imposed. So, it's a clear idea that something is not right or almost nothing is right if such low rate of penalty is going on. Now, this is the concluding slide. Okay? It will be a comparison, ideological difference to some extent. Okay? See, just come down a bit. Okay. Headless for 7th time in 11 years. I've said it multiple times, read it. Mother, whenever you have time, read these articles. These are very highly curated articles and highly sought out articles. After reading numerous articles, only a few clips have been added which give you sufficient information, just background knowledge. Okay? Central Information Commission faces crisis as RTI regime falters. Simple. Okay? There are roughly, and the second one also. RTI will become a dead letter. This is said by whom? The Supreme Court itself, if vacancies are not filled, Supreme Court is saying. Now, see, RTI is part of which syllabus? Paper 2. Okay? Polity, governance. And Supreme Court is also part of which syllabus? Polity, governance. Now see, how we'll draw parallel. Okay? There are 4 lakh cases pending in RTI and there are 4 crore plus cases pending in the courts. Okay? Now, an institution where itself 4 plus crore, the recent data is 4.4 to 4.5 crores, which is also very old data, but official data is around 4.4 crores cases are pending in the judiciary itself. And keeping that in mind, the judiciary is commenting on RTI that there are 4 lakh cases pending and it will be a dead letter. See, that is the irony which I am trying to show you. This is the one of the, there are 3 pillars of our whole structure: judiciary, executive, bureaucracy. Okay. The 4th is media, almost the dead pillar. Okay. So we all know what's going on. We don't, no need to debate on it. But the whole idea I'm showing is that Supreme Court also has vacancies, and in the same case RTI also vacancies, and both this is leading to what? The dispute or the unsatisfaction of the common citizens, we the people in power, the very people who are supposed to have power are unsatisfied or to some extent discontented. For lack of better words, these are the most simplest words which we can use. That is all. That 4.4 crores is pending in the Supreme Court. In the whole of judiciary, whole of the court system, and 4 lakh cases pending. And to some extent, in the next slide we'll see that on an average, if the current pace goes on, there's no change, there's no hiring and there's no expansion of infrastructure, but if the current pace goes on, some states might take 7 years to finish off the cases in the cases of RTI, and according to some information, the judiciary might take a few decades, 4 decades to 5 decades to complete off these cases if the current pace goes on and if there are no more cases. Like whatever is the current state, just forget that there is no more case filing, no more PILs going on, no more RTI is going on. But whatever is now dormant or whatever is now pending will take few decades. Okay? That is the whole idea. See, you will understand through this. Very classic slide, very classic examples. First, because today's topic is RTI, okay, we will start through it. According to Satark Nagrik Sangathan, it is what? It is an NGO. It is somewhat a well-known NGO, and what it is saying is, in simple, you can read it. Telangana State Information Commission would take an estimate 29 years. Okay? Meanwhile, Punjab and Madhya Pradesh will take almost 7 years to finish off their pending cases. You can ironically smile about it, but that is the present state of affairs. Now, in the second slide, India needs more than 70,000 judges to clear cases, and said by whom? The Chief Justice of India itself. And if you go in detail, see, no one will officially say it, but through researchers or just through speech talks, informal talks, it will take more to 4 decades. That is 40 plus years, and this is a very conservative approach. It is a very conservative timeline that within 40 years, the 4.4 plus cases that have been pending through ages, through decades, will come to a halt, or they will be somewhat see the light of the day, see the judgment. Okay? That is the whole idea. The topic was RTI, but I have tried to show you how 2 very important organizations, 2 very important pillars, okay, of both aimed at working towards the citizen itself are to some extent failing. Okay, that's it. Best of luck. Thank you.